Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the 47th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Let's jump right into it. So, the main thing that I've been reading is the spring cornerback battle, and that is taking place between a lot of names being thrown in here. You have the freshman Cade Phillips, you have Santana Wilson, you have Warren Roberson, you have Jalen Gilbo on the other side. Obviously, Malik Muhammad is positioned on one side. The other side is a battle between those guys. And I just wanted your opinion on that, Gerald, because you moved Jalen Gilbo from nickel back to the other cornerback spot. And I kind of thought, okay, I guess that kind of means it's his spot. So, but there's an open competition.
Yeah, it's a weird conversation to have because you did, right? You expected when Gilbo goes inside from nickel, which is a position he played pretty well last year, for him to kind of be the shoe-in. And I honestly hope, because Gilbo, I think, took a step forward last year. He was much better than I think he was 2 years ago. And so I think there's the opportunity here, like the I guess the silver lining or the sunshine I'm going to pump here is that some of these younger guys might be ahead of schedule, right? They all have the physical tools. We all knew that coming in. And so it's really like, are they up to the speed of the game? Are they up to the level of knowledge and kind of the headspace that they need to be? And if they're competing in kind of in a mess with Jalen Gilbo, then I think that's probably a good sign where Texas has multiple options that they likely feel comfortable with. I think Gilbo probably still has the inside track to it. I think age, experience. He's got a lot of reps in the trenches. He's got a lot of tread on the, or I guess, wear on the tires, and not in a bad way. I'm just kind of come up with a better metaphor. But I think he probably still has the inside track. Kobe Black saw some run last year already at cornerback, so I think he probably also is going to have a lot to say in the conversation. Again, this feels like one of those situations and instances where it feels less like a bad problem, more like Texas has a lot of options and guys aren't separating for good reasons, right? Like a rising tide raises all ships kind of situation where they're all playing really well. Texas has a lot of good options. And so it's really just like, who is the best option? And we may see them play around and experiment with some guys, because we've seen it before at Texas where somebody's a really good practice player and it just doesn't seem to click on Saturdays. So we could see a situation where they play multiple units. They play different guys and see how they shape up, because week one, that test is coming early and quick.
No, 100%. And I agree. I think it's fine with the competition being the way it is. My issue is if this goes into the fall ball, then we'll have some deeper discussions of like what's actually going on at that position in spring. I have no issue with that. Yeah, I forgot to mention Kobe Black as well. He's obviously in that conversation. Most likely that's like the stiffest competition for Jalen Gilbo, in my opinion, at this point. But it surprised me when I read that it was Cade Phillips was taking first team reps, and then also Santana Wilson. You were a big fan of Santana Wilson.
Yeah,
I also like him, but you're a bigger fan. And then Cade Phillips, I'm not surprised by, because he is a 5-star recruit, but to come in right away and start taking first team reps is pretty impressive. But you're right. They're going to be thrown into the fire. And another thing you have to consider in this era of NIL and transfer portal, of heavy transfer portal era, Jalen Gilbo, we know what the floor is. And we talk about the floor all the time on this show. It's important to know what a floor of a player is. And to me, it's like a C plus B minus player. He's a good football player when he's out there for his floor. So if he doesn't win the job, does he transfer? Because I think that's very important what you said as well of, hey, we know what these guys look like in practice, but we don't know in a game. The only two guys we truly know look like in a game are Kobe Black and Jalen Gilbo. We have no idea what any of these other guys look like. So are you willing to alienate someone that you've seen play decent football for you? That's my question, number one. And then number two is there a possibility if you lose that battle that you slide him back inside, even though he'd probably fall behind at that point because he hasn't been taking reps on the inside? And those are two completely different positions. Those are two different jobs that you have to be good at. So I don't know how I feel about that. I wish he kind of would have run away with this thing already, but yeah, I do appreciate the competition, and we have talent there. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I'm like resting on. In the era of the transfer portal, in the era of there's still another portal window to come, right? Post spring transfer portal, it's a real thing. So I mean, it's possible that one of these guys decides to dip, and I think that's the world in which we're living. And I think if it is Gilbo, that's tough because he's a guy, like I said, who has reps in the trenches. We've seen him on the field. We know what he can do. We know what he's about, and he's a solid player, right? He's a good football player. He's physical, and he probably wants to. I would wonder what the conversations were like moving him from nickel to a more cornerback spot, or more typical cornerback spot, let me say, because, is he looking for that Jahdae Barron last year to prove that, okay, I can play nickel and I can play a more traditional corner, and then he goes and gets paid, right? Because that worked out really well for the last guy who did it. So I wonder if that was his choice over the coach's choice, or if he lobbied for that, what it was. I'm curious to see how it works out. But again, you're likely to, if it is somebody other than Gilbo, then he might test the waters in the portal and see where he goes, because there are a lot of people that would probably honestly pay him a decent amount of money to go join their team and solidify a spot on the outside.
No, 100%. And that's a really good point. I floated the idea about a month before they did make the announcement of sliding him outside. I think they could do that just because they like positional versatility, one, and two, that is good at the NFL level too, because they love that as well. Like, think about it. If you can play inside and outside, guess what? There's more room for you to be able to play and show off your skill set, and allows you to get paid at whatever position fits you the best as well. So it benefits literally everyone. And yeah, it's interesting to me that he would agree to that. And then just there were some weird shifts. We removed Ryan Niblett from wide receiver to nickelback, and he's actually taking some first team reps. Like, I think he's got a real shot with his athleticism to play that position, which is very interesting. And then we're both big fans of this guy, Jelani McDonald. I also floated, hey, maybe they slide him there because he kind of fits that position perfectly, honestly, with the way he plays. So I don't know. I'm kind of getting the feeling this is just early. I've been right about some of these things before pretty early on. I think there's a really good chance Jalen Gilbo kind of gets pushed out of that starting role of what I thought he was going to be. Right now, that's just a gut feeling. It's very early on, but that's just my gut feeling heading into kind of honestly almost the end of spring ball, where it comes here quickly, it ends quickly with practice-wise, and then we're off to fall ball.
Yeah, and I think Gilbo getting squeezed out of that spot is it sucks for him, right? Obviously, he's a guy who's been really dedicated and committed to the team. But I think if he gets beat out by somebody, then they're probably really stinking good. Because again, we've seen what Jalen Gilbo can be, and another year of development in this program is not going to hurt that. So him being at the point he's at, if one of these young guys is able to jump him on the depth chart, then it feels like it's a rising tide kind of situation. And it sucks because I like Jalen Gilbo. I think he's a great player. I think he's a decent, a good person. Like, there's nothing to dislike about him. He hasn't been a headache. So like, it's one of those situations where, like, as soon as you sign, they're recruiting your replacement, and it just bears itself out like that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a guy that we got late in the cycle to come over from TCU, and then there was like rumors of him because he really wasn't getting that much playing time, and he was like a 4-star recruit of, hey, this guy could transfer. He waited his time, played pretty good football when he came in. So yeah, I have nothing bad to say about him. My question to you right now, if it's not Jalen Gilbo, who do you think it is going to be on that other side?
If I have to put my like a flag in the ground, I think probably Kobe Black. I think just based on his size, his physical abilities, his time in the seat, right? He's been there. He's already had another extra year of training. He got some run last year in a group that was really solid. So I think he's probably the one that'll put my flag in the ground for.
No, I agree. That's who I would like. He impressed me very much playing outside cornerback. And I said last year, I thought his peaks of playing, which he didn't play very often, but when he did, I thought they were better than Malik Muhammad's peaks. On a play-by-play basis, Malik Muhammad was a better cornerback. Kobe Black, you saw multiple times get burned in a couple games because guess what? He's a young freshman guy that's kind of just relying on athleticism, and he's got a lot of that, and he's got the tools to be build on. So I agree. I think it would be Kobe Black. And we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. I think there's a couple position groups that you got to keep an eye on. I think this is one of them. I think with the injuries, wide receivers definitely one of them now. Tight ends one of them. And then honestly, defensive tackle, the one other defensive tackle spot's going to be very interesting. But everything else, I mean, pretty set in stone. If CJ Baxter's healthy, he's going to be your running back. We know the quarterback's going to be. I think offensive line's pretty set in stone, other than maybe right tackle. I know there's some news, maybe Kojo versus Brandon Baker, but I think we both expect Brandon Baker to win that job. I'd be kind of surprised if Kojo wins that job. So that's going to do it for the cornerback battle. Now let's move on to this, because I think this is very interesting, because we're going to have two different top fives here. We're going to do a top 5 most important players and top 5 best players, and there is a difference. So you're going to see a difference in these lists. Let's start out with the top 5 most important players for Texas to be super successful heading into next season. Let's start out with your number 5.
I love it. My number 5 is going to be Jordan Washington / Spencer Shannon, whoever gets that tight end spot, right? Whether it's Washington or Shannon, I think they're both really good athletes, really solid athletes, but we've seen the value in this offense of what a good quality tight end can be, especially with a young quarterback, right? You're gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but a solid tight end that can just sneak out and catch a 4-yard, 5-yard out is a young quarterback's best friend. We've seen it over and over again at Texas. And so the ability to step in and replace Gunnar Helm is going to be a big deal for whoever it is. There are people, whatever camp you're in, I'm not going to argue with you. We're not set tripping over tight ends. Washington or Shannon, whoever it is, I think it's going to be super important to the offense.
No, completely agree. When you look at Steve Sarkisian's offense, that is like the safety valve of the quarterback position to check down to. And then also they get explosive plays out of that because everyone else kind of gets lost on defense looking at the wide receivers. And we've seen this multiple times where the tight end slips out the backside of the formation and gets a catch. We saw that in the Arizona State game. Gunnar Helm did that, slipped out the backside, touchdown, first play. So I completely agree with that. Number 5, it's kind of interesting. You said Jordan Washington, Spencer Shannon, and then who else? I'm doing that with defensive tackle. I'm going Travis Shaw or any defensive tackle. Whoever starts for Texas is going to be a very important player because I don't know if we're going to have the depth, number 1, at that position. And I know we're not going to have the starting talent that we did. We're just not. You see this every year with college football, guys. Eventually, that position group that you're always worried about, it doesn't work out one of those years. And I think that's probably going to end up being this year for Texas. I don't think it's going to be, Alfred Collins is going to be a top 60 pick in the NFL draft. I don't think we're going to have that this year. I just don't. So whoever gets that starting role, can they be a C-plus guy? Because if they're a C-plus guy to me, they have the edge talent on this team to be able to make up for that. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that later. I have something similar thoughts, but I have it a little bit higher up my list just because how I feel specifically about that position and the defense. I actually have Arch Manning at number 4. He's probably going to be on your list too, I'm assuming. But I think the talent around him is enough where you could probably slot a lesser quarterback into the spot and be okay, right? The offensive line is going to be solid. The wide receivers are going to be solid, right? The running game should be better this year. So you could probably get by with Arch Manning being a little bit less than what we expect, right? The expectations are going to be very lofty. And if he doesn't come in and light the world on fire instantly, people are going to have thoughts about it. And that's just not, I don't think that's an accurate read on the situation. He is, in spite of all of the rigmarole and all the fireworks and all of that stuff, he is a first-year starter going into one of the toughest places, first week of the season, and then we'll play a full SEC season on top of that, right? So, again, quarterback is vital in this offense. Steve Sarkisian is the quarterback guy. It's a quarterback-friendly offense, but I think when I'm thinking of most important guys, he's got to be on the list, but I think he's probably lower simply because, with the other talent around him, he's going to be okay.
100%. I don't disagree with that at all. And he will be on my list just a little bit higher. Number 4 for me is Malik Muhammad. So we just talked about the cornerback situation and the uncertainty on one side. You cannot have two positions, especially at cornerback, where you're not certain. And freshman year, Malik Muhammad, we were very certain. He played very well for us. I believe he was all Big 12 freshman team. So really good. And I think PFF had him ranked as the second best cornerback overall in the Big 12. So he's a really good football player his freshman year. I think he took a step back. And, there's been that rumor of him transferring for a long period of time. And I'm hoping he doesn't decide to finally, I'm going to do it in the spring portal window. So it's going to be very interesting. But we need someone to step up because you lose Andrew Makuba back there at safety. And then you lose Jahdae Barron. Those are your leaders. This is the elder statesman in the cornerback room. So can he play like it, and then can he lead like it? So I think that's very important. I'll go ahead with my number 3 as well. I have Arch Manning here, and I agree with you. I think because of the talent surrounded by him, he doesn't need to be A-plus, best quarterback in the country, If he is that, there's a chance you see this Texas team go on a run similar to a Alabama team that Steve Sarkisian was the offense coordinator of 2020. Yep. That is the potential if Arch Manning is the best quarterback in the country. If he's like the 15th best quarterback in this country, they can still win the national championship because of the talent around him. So that's why I agree with you. I'm not going to have him number 1 or number 2 on this list for that reason, but he's still very important because, let's be honest here, the most important position in all of sports is the quarterback position. So that's why I have him number 3.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And again, not just in all of football, but like especially the style of football Texas is playing, right? You need to have a solid guy back there. So moving on, my number 3, this is why I didn't comment on your defensive tackle spot. I had Cole Brevard, whoever ends up playing nose tackle, right? Whoever plays in that 0-1 position on the defense. Because of the way this defense functions, you have to have a guy there, right? You have to have somebody that they don't have to be the Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat making big splashy plays in that scheme. But you need somebody who's going to occupy multiple blockers, right? Be able to sit in that A gap and take on a guard and a center to keep your linebackers free, right? This is a very linebacker play heavy defensive scheme. It just is what it is, right? And so being able to keep that free, especially because, spoilers for the next list, one of the best players on the team playing right behind him, right? You allow your linebackers, who are your big playmakers in the run game and on the edges in the pass, to play better and to make those big plays. And so whoever ends up playing that nose tackle, I have Cole Brevard, but it could be, again, one of the other transfers that came in, could be one of the other guys that has assigned in this recent recruiting class, right? Don't know who it's going to be, but whoever occupies that A gap is going to be huge for Texas.
100% agree with that. Number 2 for me is CJ Baxter. I think for this run game to get going, we need a running back like this, so he needs to be super healthy. And we've already heard there's going to be an emphasis of power run football. Well, guess what? You really don't have a power running back other than him and maybe Christian Clark on this team that can, honestly, we haven't seen Christian Clark, so I'm only going to say CJ Baxter at this point. And then Jared Gibson has fumble issues. So one guy that I've seen produce at the college level without fumble issues, CJ Baxter. So I think he's super important. He can also catch out of the backfield. I think he's the most complete back on this team, and I think he's one of the 2 most important players on this team. So hopefully he comes back healthy. Hopefully he comes back ready. I think we can get away with like the Trey Wisners and the other guys for, your average typical SEC game. When we go and play Mississippi State, that's going to be fine. But when you're playing Ohio State, when you're playing Georgia, when you're playing the teams that you need to win a national championship, as we saw, getting to the 1 of Ohio State doesn't mean you're going to score the football. You need someone like this to punch the football in. So I think that's why he's one of my 2 most important players for Texas.
Yeah, I think the 1 and 2 spots are going to be pretty boring for folks, and I apologize because I also had CJ Baxter at number 2, right? Based upon, 1, how this offense functions, we saw the offense sputter in some spaces because Texas was not able to run that zone scheme that Steve Sarkisian really likes to run. It is a pass-friendly offense, but he still wants to run play action. He still wants to pound the rock. That's how you control the game. In spite of all of the offense and the statistics and all of the wild and crazy things that Steve Sarkisian likes to do with the football, running the ball is still his bread and butter, that zone scheme. And you talked about it a couple weeks ago, Matthew, the Texas's inability to punch the ball in from the red zone, punch the ball in on short yardage. They were a terrible red zone team. Terrible, period, right? And we saw it bear itself out, like you mentioned, against Ohio State in the college football playoff. We saw it bear itself out in multiple different instances. But ultimately, having a running back like CJ Baxter, who is somewhat of a complete package, right? He can run, he's an every down back for Texas. And especially as Texas gets into the red zone and has to push on the pile, put themselves in the red zone, their ability to, or CJ Baxter's ability to be that guy for them is going to be a limiting or an enabling factor for the Texas offense moving forward. I think Matthew's having some connectivity issues, so I will jump in to my number 1, and then I will let him jump back in when he gets back on. My number 1 most important player for the 2025 season, Trevor Goosby. Anybody who's been on these live streams before, who's listened to the podcast before, probably saw this one coming. Trevor Goosby is my number 1 most important player, right? Because you're recycling most of your offensive line, the vast majority of it. You got a brand new quarterback, the most important point on the offensive line, left tackle. Trevor Goosby seems to be the guy that's going to be playing that, replacing Kelvin Banks. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, right? So Trevor Goosby is my most important player simply because young quarterback, new offensive line. Texas fans have gotten used to being able to set their clock to Kelvin Banks. And so Texas fans are going to need, the offense is going to need Trevor Goosby to be, you don't have to be Kelvin Banks. Like, that is an unfair expectation. I just need you to be good and to keep Arch Manning from getting blasted on the backside.
It's funny because you were right. I have Trevor Gooseby number 1 as well. I completely agree with that. You've had someone at the left tackle position, you know who that's going to be for 3 years, and he's done a phenomenal job. I think 4 sacks in 3 years. So someone is going to have to slide into that and play to not that level, but play at a good level, something that is between a Kelvin Banks level and a level that we saw before Kelvin Banks. If Trevor Gooseby can be that, just between that, that is good enough, especially with, again, Arch Manning's mobility. That's going to allow the offensive line to be not as good, even though I actually have, in the opinion of, I think they're going to be better in certain aspects than the other offensive line was. So I completely agree with that. That does it for the top 5 most important players for Texas. We really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Again, guys, we are on every audio platform as well. So Spotify, Apple, wherever you stream your podcast, you can find us there. It kills your battery and everything. Summer's coming up, long road trips. You can listen to us on there. So we really appreciate that. And then also, guys, if you feel like sponsoring the Voice of College Football channel, you can do that too. Just go, and we have actually something from the Win Agency that sponsors the Michigan channel. And guess what, guys? Someone tonight will win the $1,000 bracket challenge. So that's a pretty cool thing that they were doing. TJ is no longer going to win that. It's funny, though. The Win Agency had their own bracket so they could win their $1,000 back. If Houston wins tonight, they're not giving away money. They're keeping the money. So it could have worked out for them as well, but they have a great sponsorship with us. So to get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the Voice of College Football, let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. We really appreciate you guys doing that. And again, it can be any show on the network. Doesn't have to be our show, doesn't have to be the Michigan show, doesn't have to be any of those shows. It can be any show on the network, so we really appreciate that. And then also check out the Voice of College Football Instagram page. You just have to type in Voice of College Football. You'll find us. Please go over there and give us a follow. Obviously, we'll be pumping out more content with the season coming around and during the season, so we really appreciate that. Next up, we talked about most important players. Let's talk about the 5 best players on the Texas football team. So again, that's going to be a little bit different. Gerald, I'll let you kick this off again. Who is your number 5?
Yeah, so my most important players were very offense heavy. My best players are going to be very defense heavy. I think I have number 5 at Trey Moore. I think Trey Moore is a guy who is very I think Texas fans did not appreciate the things that Trey Moore was doing all the time, especially early in the season. There was a lot of talk about him not hitting those sack numbers that he had at UTSA and blah, 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 blah. But Trey Moore was, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, he was the dirty work guy. He was the guy who was going to seal the backside and keep you from getting a cutback. He was going to blow up an option on his own. He was the guy, the lunch pail guy, the guy who was just going to do all of those fundamental football things that you need to be successful, right? Defense, fancy stuff is all the rage, but like defense is really just playing fundamentals, right? Good fundamental defense will win you a ton of football games. And that's what Trey Moore brings to the table. Oh, and then when Colin Simmons, who will come up in this conversation later, I'm sure, came on later in the year, then Trey Moore got his sack numbers up. So he is a guy, he didn't lose the talent. He didn't lose the ability to bend the edge. I think he was drawing more attention, also playing really sound fundamentals. And then things shifted favorably. And we saw what I think a lot of fans expected him to be, which was a guy who's able to be very disruptive in the backfield.
No, 100%. He turned it on later in the year. I think, like you said, just getting used to the competition, and that does matter. And I think he did that. And you're going to see him slide inside, play a little bit more in there as well. So I think, again, positional versatility. They love that on Texas, and he's going to be able to do multiple things. Play inside, play a little bit of edge. I think he's going to have a really good year. Number 5 for me is Ryan Wingo. And the reason why is I think he has the most upside of any wide receiver on the roster. And I think he's going to be a really good football player. Hopefully the hamstring can get better. I know that's a big thing. He's going to, take off the rest of spring football. And I completely agree with that decision because I really don't care what he's doing April 7th. I do care what he's doing week 1 versus Ohio State. I'm hoping he takes the top off, plays with all that speed and athleticism that we saw last year. And I think he's going to be a really good football player for Texas for the next 2 years. And I don't think you're going to have him past 2 years.
I actually have him number 4 on my list. So we can, he's right there. Again, we saw what he can do. Incredible. Who's your number 4 before we move on to mine?
Number 4 is Michael Taft for me. I think Michael
Okay.
Taft is the veteran guy in the secondary. I think he was really, really damn good last year. We've seen a steady improvement with him year over year, and I think you're going to see that even more. I think he learned a lot from Andrew Makuba. I think he learned a lot from Janae Barrett, and I think he's going to be able to execute that on the field this year. I also think he's a very good leader, and I think he's going to be the biggest voice on that side of the ball, other than probably Anthony Hill. So I'm really excited to see what he can do as the elder statesman of the whole secondary. And I think he's going to have a phenomenal football year this year.
Yeah, I feel like I did a disservice to Mookie because I feel like he didn't make my most important players. He didn't make my top 5 best player list. And I feel like he was like hovering right around. I honestly spent way too much time on these lists because I really wanted to make sure I got them right. But like, yeah, I think you're right about Michael Taft. He is from a like linchpin perspective, right? People that are going to hold things together for the defense. I don't know if there's anybody more important or better at it on this team than Michael Taft. Now, he didn't make my list because I really went like talent heavy for like best players, less impact. But he was like hovering right around there. I had him on my most important players list. And then I reconfigured it after I had lunch because it was just one of those things. But so yeah, I have Ryan Wingo at number 4 on my list because he, like you said, we saw flashes of brilliance from him last year. We saw the speed. We saw his ability to locate in the high point of the ball. We saw his ability to run some pretty solid and crisp routes that put defenders in blenders, right? All of those things you want from your number 1 wide receiver, but he wasn't the number 1 wide receiver. Part of the reason why he was able to do those things, I think, was because there was so much attention on Isaiah Bond, on Matthew Golden, on Gunnar Helm, right? So defenses weren't playing to him. And so I'm curious to see, we see all of that talent and what we the flashes of brilliance we got from him. I think he is one of the most talented players on the team, but what does it look like when he's the number 1 guy, right? When the safety's playing over the top of him, when he's drawing bracket coverage, what does that look like? Again, all the talent in the world, and hopefully one of these other guys pops off so they can't key on him. But what does that talent look like when teams are able to key on him?
No, 100%. I don't disagree with that at all. He was running third in line, sometimes second when Isaiah Bond got hurt. But overall, he wasn't the guy that, hey, going into this, we have to game plan versus this guy. That was Matthew Golden. Some part of the season it was Isaiah Bond, and then it was Ryan Wingo. It's going to be squarely on Ryan Wingo from Jump Street. So it's going to be very interesting there. Who's your number 3?
Number 3, I have Manny Muhammad. I think he is a guy who he had a sophomore slump. Like, let's just call it out there, right? He did not look as solid last year in spots as he did his freshman year. I'm not sure what it was, what caused it. I'm not going to speculate it. I don't have sources, but there was something different between freshman year and sophomore year with him. That being said, we saw still what made him so great and so special as a freshman, why he walked on campus and was a lockdown corner, why he became Muhammad Island really quickly. And so that talent is still there. And I think hopefully in this spring and in the fall, that gets unlocked, right? He is a dude who can be and will be, I think, for Texas, a lockdown corner, lockdown a side of the field, and just keep people from throwing to the side of the ball. He is a guy who can be very disruptive for a defense. We've seen it happen. We didn't see it as much last year as we did his freshman year, but I do think that whatever it was happening, I think they're going to work it out, and I really hope Manny Muhammad comes and lives up to what we expected from him because he can be a lockdown corner for Texas.
Yeah, that was my only reason for not putting him top 5 is because of the slump he had. Because freshman year, if he would have just kept that and maybe improved like 5%, he would be on my list, no doubt. Even if he just stayed the same, honestly, I would have had him there. But I just don't know what player I'm getting because it was a complete 180 from year 1 to year 2 and not a good way. So I'm hoping he does improve. But we'll have to see. He definitely can pop on there because I think he was like the first 5-star recruit at the cornerback position Texas had in like 7 or 8 years. So yeah, he's definitely got the talent for sure. My number 3 is Arch Manning. I have him at number 3 because I do not know. I think I know what he's going to be, but I do not know. We think all the time about what these prospects are going to be and how good they're going to be, but you really have no idea. Do I think he's going to be a very good football player? Yes. Do I know? No. And that's why I have him at number 3. And my top 2 are guys I already know are really damn good football players and have high upside. Now, if Arch Manning shows me he does, then guess what? Next year he'll be number 1. It probably won't even be close because I don't think there'll be anyone approaching that next year. So for right now, I have him at number 3.
Yeah, my hottest take, I didn't have Arch Manning on this list, right? I did not have him on my top 5 best players. And I really, it's not a shot at Arch Manning, right? Don't clip this and be like, this guy thinks he's not that. Because that's not the case, right? But I think from just like when I was stacking players, right, Arch Manning was like 6, right? It was right there for how I read it and how I felt about it. I thought Arch Manning was good last year when he came in, right? Really good. But I think the guys that I have on the list, I think just had a little bit more last year. And again, Arch Manning's going to step in, be the guy. And I think, again, like you said, if we redid this in September, he'd probably be number 2 or 3 on my list because I anticipate him coming in and being that dude. I think Ohio State is going to be a great coming out party for him. I think it's going to be really great to watch. But ultimately, as it stands right now, didn't have him on my list. My number 2, Colin Simmons. I have Colin Simmons at number 2. There are not enough superlatives for Colin Simmons and what he was able to do. True freshmen do not come on campuses and play as well and as dominantly as he did toward the end of the year. It's just not a thing. Not a thing that happens. And again, we are in a different era where high school guys are more developed than they used to be. But even still, right, that is an 18, 19-year-old kid going up against offensive linemen that are 21, 22-year-olds, grown men bodies, right? He has not even grown into his paws yet. And he was still one of the best edges in the country, not the conference, in the country. That is wild to say that a kid, true freshman, came in and set the world on fire in that way. And again, him coming on later in the year allowed Trey Moore to put up numbers, right? When he got better, the defense got better. Colin Simmons is a difference maker, period, end of sentence. Like, they don't make them like him.
No, I agree. And I think we're just going to have 2 and 1 reverse. I have number 2 as Anthony Hill. I think Anthony Hill is a spectacular football player all around. I think there's a couple things he needs to get better with. We saw a little bit coverage-wise he wasn't the best at last year, but I think he's got the athleticism and the size to be able to get better at that. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to get better at that. And then I think he had like 8 sacks last year. So as a guy as a primary as a linebacker with 8 sacks, all these tackles for loss, it's really that last aspect of his game is dropping into coverage and being a good coverage linebacker. So if he can do that, I mean, the sky's the limit. Right now, you're talking probably a first-round pick if he does that top 10 type pick. So yeah. Texas hasn't had that since, I think, Derek Johnson. So at that position.
Yeah, and again, like you said, we have them flipped. I have Anthony Hill as my most talented or my best player on the team. And again, much like Colin Simmons, words are hard to describe. Like, again, he came on campus, was the best linebacker in that room early, came in, blew things up. And as a freshman, being able to just go out there and be like, play positionless football is wild, right? Just go find ball, see ball, find quarterback, get quarterback, right? That was his game as a freshman. We saw him step up pretty significantly as a linebacker, starting at late in that year, but ultimately this last year, he was the dude, right? And he made the defense go. He was the reason why for a lot of days that Texas defense was really, really nasty. Now, again, he had the advantage of having some really good defensive tackles in front of him, but his ability to go and make plays, go and be explosive, go and be violent, go and fit for the run, whatever, like he did basically everything they asked him to. He got picked on in a couple of games in pass coverage, but again, that's something that he can grow on. They do not make linebackers like Anthony Hill, and especially, and this is again my controversial take, the state of Texas doesn't put out that many elite linebackers, and so him not only being an elite linebacker, but being an in-state guy, like you cannot overstate not just the on-the-field impact, but the impact as an in-state kid he had for Texas. That's why he's number 1 on my list.
Yeah, number 1 for me, you already talked about in Colin Simmons. I think this guy has the potential to be the number 1 overall pick. That's how good I think he is. I mean, 8.5 sacks as a freshman. Like, let's just say he does that again. So we're talking 24 sacks over 3 years. That's a hell of a career for a college football player. And that's going to put you, especially in the SEC, going to put you as a top 10 pick. And if he improves on that, let's say he improves 1 sack every year, we're talking 9, 10, and then a couple forced fumbles. I mean, it was a realistic shot as a number 1 overall pick, and PFF's already comparing him to guys like Von Miller and stuff like that. So overall, I think he has the potential to be the highest drafted player on this whole Texas roster, and that's including Arch Manning, and that says a lot. So that's why I have him number 1. I will say this. I wish he wouldn't have changed his number. I like 11 more than 1 personally as an edge guy, so that's a little ding for him in my book.
I'm with you there. 11 was cool. 11 looks real cool. Like, no, like the single digits are great. I also still believe that the biggest player on the field should get number 0. That's my personal conviction. But Collins 11 was elite. Like, why did you change it?
Yeah, it's doubled one. That's all it is. So,
The
I
number of
think
sacks he's going to get in 2025.
yeah, let's hope that'd be awesome. Yeah, then if he gets 11 sacks, he's got to switch back to 11. That's the rule. So, that's our top 5 best players for Texas. Now let's move on to this. Texas lands a 2027 commitment. Don't really love talking about these, but we're going to talk about them because guess what? A year and a half is a long time to hold on to someone, but this guy is a really, really good football player. Tevin Epps comes from Tustin, California. This is crazy when I saw it. 6'4" and a half, 225 pounds as a linebacker. Now, I will say this. He played safety last year in high school. Now he's switching to linebacker. So, again, we talk about this all the time. Positional versatility for this football team. And what do you know? They get a guy that's switching positions and gigantic as well.
I actually think he played safety as a freshman and played linebacker as a sophomore, which, again, starting varsity as a freshman in and of itself is insane, right? Like, tons of positional versatility. I think he also played a little wide receiver last year. There were a couple of clips on his huddle that he played at wide receiver. This is one of those, like, the sword cuts both ways because he is absolutely like a guy who I think will play linebacker at Texas, but be really good in pass coverage because of his time playing safety and his time playing wide receiver. But I also wonder if he's going to suffer the lack of development that comes with being like the best kid on the field. Go watch his huddle. He is the biggest kid, not on the team, but on the field by far. Massive kid. And so he ends up playing all over for them. And so I wonder what level of polish he's going to have coming in. That's my big concern. But outside of that, like, he's explosive, really great instincts on him. Like, just absolutely, like, the thing that jumped out to me the most about him, and this is going to sound weird, he has crazy long arms. If you go watch his tape, he can almost scratch his knees standing straight up. Like, the arms are ridiculous, which is great for somebody who he has the frame. If he, depending on how his body develops, he could end his way down at edge because, again, 6'4", 225 as, 15, 16-year-old is a really big frame. And so depending on what his body does when he gets to Texas and gets in the right strength and conditioning program, gets in the right nutrition program, he could end up at edge. Long arms on an edge. Yes, and hallelujah, praise whoever you choose to praise, right? So, like, he's got a frame that could do a lot for Texas. 2027, long ways away. December of next year is a very long way away. We've got to get to this next December first and get these 2026 kids in. So it's a long time to hold on to him, but I'd rather have him in the boat than have to try to flip him later.
No, 100%. And it's, yeah, like you said, long time to hold on to him. And then also, he's not from Texas. He's from California. So you're talking about a guy that's the number 2 linebacker in California. He's the number 6 overall player. So if USC starts to get on a roll, I mean, they're right down the road. Why not go play for them? That's an easy recruiting pitch. And then also what you said is a good point. He's like 15, 16 years old. He could grow another like 2 to 3 inches. Then what are you going to do when he's 6'7", 250 pounds? Like, does he have to move to tight end at that point? Because he's, like we said, or you said, he already played wide receiver in high school. If you get that big, you can't play. I don't know any linebacker that's over 6'5". Like 6'5" seems to be the absolute limit for linebacker. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about this kid because I don't know where he's going to play at this point.
He's one of those guys that, like, I don't know where he's going to play, but get him on campus and figure it out. Like, that's one of those, like, his body could do 1,001 different things between then and now. And when you get to Texas, he's going to develop and they'll put him where he wants. Like, he's an athlete. Like, he's one of those dudes that just get him on campus and let the coaches sort him out. Right.
Yeah. 100%. It's kind of right now he has the same build as like Anthony Hill basically at Texas. Anthony Hill, 6'4", 230 pounds. This kid's only like 10 pounds lighter than Anthony Hill. So it's going to be very interesting if he does come to Texas, where they're going to use him, one, and how they're going to develop him. But like you said, he's a good football player. That's obvious. You can see that on tape. And then he's a really good athlete. He also plays basketball. So overall, hey, maybe that's where we'll just say, hey, 6'7", you're going to go to the basketball team now. I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting. We'll see if we can hold on to him. That's the biggest thing. Like, a year and a half is a very, very, very long time to hold on to people, especially in this era of college football. We see guys who don't even take visits and are like, you know what, you offered me 25% more than the other school. I'm going to go to where you're going. And I don't know what to expect, but again, hell of a football player. We'll see how it ends up. But overall, he's the first guy in the 2027 class. We only have like 4 or 5 guys in the 26 class. We already have one in the 27 class.
Yeah, I mean, and again, he's one of those guys that like commits and just shuts it down. Who knows? Those are rare nowadays, especially like you said, out of state kids. But I ultimately like there's something to be said about a kid who's not in state committing this early to Texas and the inroads Texas is making in these out of state commitments, right? In these traditionally non-Texas places. Now, Sark has a bit of a pipeline there, but again, getting a kid this elite out of state to commit this early, I'd rather have it than have to flip him later. I'm all in.
No, 100%. So that does it for this episode. Thank you guys for joining us. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Again, this has been the 47th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, no matter what. National championship game in basketball kicks off in about 7 minutes, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. And again, guys, you can listen to us on your favorite audio platform, Spotify, Apple, doesn't matter. You can find us. Just type in the voice of college football. Also, guys, check us out on Twitter. That is my Twitter right there, host of the Texas channel here at the Voice of College Football, and that is Gerald's Twitter and Blue Sky, along with his Longhorn Pod, which you can also catch on every listening podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you listen, you can find it right there at the Longhorn Pod. So we really appreciate you guys being here. We will catch you guys next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.